Hey guys, my name is Terry and I'm a collectibles dealer. I'm a big fan of music, but I'm not an expert. That's why we've got Johnny D.
Hi, this is Jody Watley and you're in the mix with Johnny D.
Johnny D, we're back. Good to see
Yo,
you.
Terry, man, I'm very excited because I've been thinking. I said I keep listening to myself, I'm making myself sick hearing myself. We need to hear more of Terry. So I want you to dive into the poster world. I mean, I really didn't know a lot about this. I still don't know a lot, but what you're telling me off screen just blows my mind, and it's so in sync with with the record side of it. I just love hearing the story. So you got to tell me a couple.
Well, to be honest, I'm still learning myself, but I'll share a few posters with you today and hopefully we get some conversation going. The first one is this Delfonics Kool the Gang poster. I'll have Sage put it up on the screen so everyone could see. The thing about this poster is it's on cardboard, and there were probably about 100 to 200 of these made. But it's a beautiful poster, and it's kind of like a collage style. I mean, you don't really see posters like this anymore where it's a collage of the faces and heads of these figures who, Kool the Gang, amazing, yeah. And there's so much information on these posters, which is what I love about them. And the other day we did an episode with Jeremy where he was talking about how as he matured as a person and his knowledge of music matured, the same song would have a different impact on him. And, that's the same way that I feel about these posters. I can look at a poster, and the more knowledge I get about music, the more things I notice and the more things make sense.
It all comes together, man. It really, and it's funny because me being on like the label side from it, that's a whole other perspective of how these things were actually put together. And the latter years, it morphed into something else.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, what's your reaction when you first see this? I mean,
Well, I mean, I got to tell you, it's like when you look at it, like you said, you really don't see the multiple. And then looking back, now you're looking 30, 40 years later, 50, the Delfonics, iconic, Kool the Gang. Then like, oh, by the way, Eddie Palmieri, the Shy Lights, Persuade. It's just, and then on the bottom is the Dramatics. It's incredible. It's just every one of those groups and people just have this legacy of just incredible stuff. And the beauty is something like that. It's kind of like the rookie card and the test pressing, the acetate. I'm sure at least one of these acts was just starting at this point. I don't know which one it was, but all was very early. So it was like there really wasn't, it's the Delfonics, obviously, with the headliners and stuff, but the Shy Lights went on to, have tremendous hits. So it's just crazy how when you look at that and to see, where they actually wound up in the history books, it's amazing. That's what's beautiful about that's a part of history that's just documenting, what was going on at that time. Love it.
I love the Kool the Gang image. It's just such a great image. And
Hey.
you had mentioned to me that you had an encounter with Kool the Gang.
Yeah, well, Cool from Kool the Gang I did a gig at the Sound Factory Bar years ago in 1993 in New York it was a big night in conjunction with the time Hot 103 and the company I was working for, and I had incredible traffic. I mean, house guys, hip hop guys. It was a house club, and I was very close with Funkmaster Flex at the time, and he came to see me after a show. He used to go on from 10 to 12 or whatever until 12 midnight, and like I was there till 5 in the morning, and it was just crazy. And my old boss came over to me and says, "Oh, yeah, by the way, this is Cool from I think Ron, I think his name." And but I was in the middle of all this chaos, and that blew my mind. Years later, I wound up meeting Diodato, who was the producer of like the biggest hit, Celebration, Too Hot, Ladies Night, all of that stuff. So I think I met two out of three, because the third would have been great to meet James T. Taylor. Then, not that I want to interrupt on your thing, but I will share.
No.
I do have a Celebration test pressing album.
Oh,
which,
wow.
Actually, it is the 12-inch. That I've never seen another one of those. That's pretty incredible.
That is
And
incredible.
that's obviously their biggest record. But yeah, I mean, I met Diodato years later, and I was asking him questions about how he would do records, and he had worked with Sinatra. And I remember him. One of the things I was very, curious about was like, for some reason, we got into the process, and he was telling me how he would sit down at his table after school or whatever, and he would just write things and have them mapped all over. So I would picture like his mother cooking in the background and him with all this paperwork on the table. So yeah, that was just one of those things. But yeah, I mean, iconic. I have some Delphonic stuff as well. Eddie Palmieri, I have there was a project years ago called New Eurekan Soul, which was it was a mix of a lot of Latin artists. And Eddie, I met Eddie, and he actually signed, I had all the signatures from everybody. It was George Benson, Tito Puente, India, Roy Ayers, George Benson, Vince Montana. It was incredible.
Wow.
Eddie was a great guy. I mean, Eddie and Tito Puente as well was one of those guys that I remember being in the studio when he came in to work with my friends, and he was like, he wouldn't even charge, like, yo, just give me a 6 pack of Heineken. Like they were just good people. So that was great to be around that.
No, that's incredible. And that, that Kool and the Gang test pressing is really special too, for sure.
That's
Um,
why, yeah.
one other thing on the on the poster that's interesting to me is that you've got all this little writing. I mean, you mentioned all these bands, but hidden kind of at the lower left is the Black Ivory
Black
and
Ivory. I mean, it's ridiculous. Black Ivory was one of the biggest, disco. And Black Ivory was Leroy Burgess, who went on to do multiple hits under different aliases. He was himself. He was the lead singer of Aleem. He was in all these different groups. He's still making records. Leroy's still out there.
yeah, and of course the concert is at the Manhattan Center, which is interesting on its own. Battle of the Groups is the title, which a lot of kids today would think that battles is like restricted to like hip
Yes.
hop or rap, but Battle of the Groups, battling has been on, around for a
Forever. I
long
mean,
time.
years ago, there was the Four Seasons versus, what was there? There was the Four Seasons versus some.
Well, that's a little
Might
outside
have
of
been the
my.
Four Tops, but there was something. I remember years ago they had that. That was a thing.
The other thing I notice is, the MC of the event is WWRL's Jerry B, who is a really well-known DJ, soul DJ, who is really well regarded. I think it was Jerry Bledsoe, but. Yeah, I mean, there's so much information, and the more that I learn about music, the more I get out of this poster. Besides it being visually very, very appealing, and the fact, like your acetates, no one else has got this on their wall, right? So, like,
And,
if
and
you,
also the condition is also ridiculous. There are no creases, there are no markings, there's no
well,
tape.
that's interesting. That's interesting because my take on it, and people have different takes on this, but my take on it is with these posters that I actually prefer a poster that has weather and has scuffs and scratches because that demonstrates that it was hung outside or in a window.
Yes.
And I prefer that than one of these mint copies that, never saw any action. Like
Yes.
and so
Yeah,
condition.
I guess as a collector, there are two ways to. I mean, I know when I collect acetates, some of them, most of them don't even have outer sleeves, so they'll come in like a beat up inner sleeve that's like
Wow.
browning, and I'll keep those because a lot of times there are notes written on those, so I'll keep them, but I repackage them, so I have the best of both worlds. I put them in a new inner, a new outer, but I keep whatever the original packaging
That's
was.
great.
But I love when you get a mint. I mean, I do like to get mint, but I understand what you're saying totally.
What do you do when, I mean, you showed that one box from Sterling Sound or Specialty? Was it Specialty?
No,
Which
no, that was
was it Sterling?
I think it was Sterling, yes.
Sterling. Yeah, that
Sterling.
box is incredible. What do you do if you get a box that has something? Do you still put it in your own new sleeve
I
or
actually don't like the boxes. I like them to show them whatever. I think the boxes are kind of a pain in the ass, so I repackage them and keep the box separately.
the box
The reason
separate?
the reason I don't like the boxes, I can't put it in plastic because the plastic doesn't fit
Right,
around. Where the
right.
records I could have in double and triple plastic, they're cool, but and what happens is the boxes are made where you can't put the jacket inside. You could only put the inner. So it's protected, but I don't like that protection. I like the outer cover over the box. I love the box for aesthetics, but I don't like the box. I don't like to keep the records in the box.
The box and the sticker, though, I mean, it's pretty
Oh,
special.
it's great. No, it's great. The time, it's great. I mean, they're really, those are so few. You know what I mean? Acetates are rare as it is, but the box thing, I mean, it's crazy.
I love that. Okay, well, moving on, and this one is more of a small poster flyer size piece, but it's the Sugarhill Gang roller disco affair.
Incredible.
And this is early on in January of 1980. Of course, the song came out, I believe, September of '79. So the song had been out for a little bit, but it took a little while to get going. And this was really the peak period of the popularity, not just in the U.S.,
globally,
but globally. I mean, at this point, it was the number one in Canada. It was high on the UK charts. It was top of the charts in the Netherlands. And this is really, Rapper's Delight, bringing hip hop to the world. Commercial hip hop. And so, this is early January 1980, Sugarhill Gang. And then as you point out, I mean, what do you notice about this poster?
Well, I mean, it's like the Sugarhill Gang. I mean, that's great. But to me, Vaughn Mason and crew and Herman Kelly, that's where my eye went.
Interesting.
It's like, I mean, listen, it's Sugarhill Gang without a doubt, iconic. And I have my own share of Sugarhill memorabilia, but Vaughn Mason and crew, I mean, that record is so important. It still gets played. I mean, I play it on my station. It's probably on daily, at least once a day on my station. It was, underneath Good Times, but it was that record. It was as significant at the time as Good Times was.
Interesting.
It was that record. I mean, you used to cut those together. Good to doom, 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 doom. That was it. I mean, that was the peanut butter and jelly combination, and it was that important. And I got to tell you, on that record, you talk about crazy rarities and stuff. I have a test pressing. Well, I can't even. I mean, you talk about like you can't even believe you have it in your hand. But the crazy part, to tie to you, when I first met you and you showed me the Curtis Blow Christmas Rappin' on Sunshine Sound acetate. The Vaughn Mason acetate is also a Sunshine Sound.
Interesting.
And the only way I knew yours was legit, and that whole thing, was because it gave the writers credit on it. And it said Brunswick. All the bootlegs that were done there never gave the credit. They wouldn't even give the artist most of the time.
What a rich history of Sunshine Sound. I mean,
crazy.
That needs to be
Sunshine. And it's funny because I don't give Sunshine a lot of credit for the bootlegs. And I got to tell you, I have utmost respect for Sunshine Sound. The guy, Frank, he was a beautiful person. My time there was incredible. As a matter of fact, I found the 2 records I did in 1981 there, which I'm going to show at a future date. I just came across them in storage the other day, so I'm going to show those. But the thing about the Sunshine Sound acetate, to me, that kind of takes away from it is there are people out there in the acetate world that are kind of like, oh, got the Sunshine Sound collection. And
yes,
I just, that's not an acetate. Like ours are acetates because they were actually made for the group at the time. But to have the 10-inch bootlegs, which are great and I love them, I just don't see the value that. And people say, oh, I have this Donna Summer, I Feel Love, the remix on Sunshine Sound, which it's nice, but it's not.
Right. Like I've had some guys who are very knowledgeable about memorabilia, about music memorabilia, even about records, and kind of question the Christmas Rappin' acetate, even though I know what it is.
That is definitely legit.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. If I didn't see the 4 or 5 others, I would have probably thought it
that's
wasn't.
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because I pieced it together over the years.
That's right. And that's the kind of knowledge that is priceless and precious, because only guys
and
like
not
you
on the
know
internet.
that.
And you
That's
can't
right.
Google that.
No, that's right.
We're the Google.
That's right. And so I understand why guys question it, but it also reminds me that when I'm questioning something that no
You
matter
might
how
not
much
know.
yeah, that's right. No matter how
And,
much
and,
I
and that's
know,
and that is a perfect, there's your soundbite. That's a perfect, that's so right. You think you whatever, you kind of yeah, whatever. And
you
then you've
you could never
whatever.
have enough. You could never have all the information, no matter how much
You
information
have to
you
be
get.
open, absolutely.
Even you can learn something new.
I love it. I love these conversations. I mean, you teach me so much about this, the collector world that I've been in. You've given me this whole other side of it that I just wasn't privy to. I just, whether I didn't care, whatever, but you're opening my eyes to a lot of it. And when it gets into, comics and posters, like I had no knowledge of this. I mean, the posters are a lot more personal to me than like comics and stuff. I mean, these posters are incredible.
Well, it's mutual. I mean, every time I meet someone who is the expert in their collecting field, like you are, it adds a tremendous amount of knowledge to my arsenal because I'm learning things from you that I could very easily incorporate into and make comparisons between other categories. So it's definitely mutual. Besides Vaughn Mason, is there anything else on this
Well,
particular
yeah,
piece?
I mean the Herman Kelly, Dance to the Drum is beat one of the most important records in that whole. Before it was breakdancing, it was up rocking, and that was everybody had two copies. It was originally on Cat Records, KAT. The difference was that version ended. He's somebody, which everybody wanted, and then when TK Disco put it out, Jim Burgess mixed it and he took that out and he faded it, which I never understood. Beautiful, beautiful. I have a crazy acetate as well, but unbelievable history. I mean, that's those three things. I mean, Sugarhill, Vaughn Mason, and Herman Kelly. If someone today were to try to put together and say, okay, I'm going to curate the poster from 1980 of what was going on in the world, they wouldn't have done that. They would go and say what was big in 1980, or like what was big later. So Sugar Hill Gang would have made it. Herman Kelly wouldn't make that, and Vaughn Mason would not make that list. That's the crazy part of when people rewrite history. I want to do a little aside. In the record business years ago, before the conglomerate was okay, so MS Broadcasting or Clear Channel, they come into a market and they basically have 4 or 5 stations. So they're controlling everything you listen to, whether it's rock, rap, disco, light FM, jazz, whatever it is. It's one company that owns all this. So they're basically programming everything. At the time, years ago, Hot 103, which I wound up being a part of later on when it was WKTU in 2000, um, there was an artist named Sapphire, and she was a big freestyle artist. Freestyle is a form of dance after house records. They originally called it Latin hip hop, and we'll definitely do a show on freestyle. I have crazy freestyle stuff. Anyway, Sapphire was a big thing, and she had a brother that was in a group called N More, and probably the biggest record out in freestyle was called You'll Never Find. Biggest record. I was playing 3 nights a week at that time. That was my peak record. Sometimes play it twice a night, which I didn't like to do, but it was that big. And the station, the number one station playing this stuff was Hot 103. And her brother had a problem with the other members of the group. And what happened was he left the group. So now these two other guys are performing as End More, which is the name of the group. And she goes to the guy, Joel, I think his name was Joel Sacco at the time, and said, if you play their record, I'm not going to do anything for you. So basically, they had Summer Jam and whatever they're doing at Christmas and all these stupid shows. And she was the headliner. They needed her. So she basically said, if you play that record, you're out of business with me, which was crazy. And they did. And the label this was on was a tremendous label. It was Micmac, which Marvin Schlachter from Prelude was a part owner in.
That's where you met Biz Markie.
That's where I met Biz Markie, exactly. So what happens is this record to this day is probably as big as the Sapphire records. And the point of the story is when people go back and look, they look at the old logs of a radio station, what was played, doesn't come up. So when people do a top 10 or a top 20 of freestyle at that time, this record won't come up if they're using the radio database, the Clear Channel database, which is insane because that's not accurate. It's
Yeah.
not, that's not. So this poster was what was happening on the street. Today, someone would try to make this corporate and say, oh, Sugarhill Gang, and then, we should have Vanilla Ice or some stupid shit. But that's what would happen. So that's when I look at that, that's where my brain goes, because you can't make that up.
No,
Nobody will
no,
look back at
yeah,
this 50 years and put Herman Kelly. They wouldn't do it.
that's right.
There's no history of Herman Kelly.
I think the point you're making, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that, in law school they said, go to the statute, look at the code. Whenever you have a question, refer back to the code and see what it says. And I look at these posters and flyers as the code. I mean, you want the truth? Go look at what was published. I mean, there's so much information, and it's the primary source, right? I look at this poster and I see Eddie Chiba, DJ
Yes.
Eddie Chiba, like one of the most prominent names in hip hop DJs.
Yes.
I see the other thing I see is it's at the National Roller Rink in DC, and of course, the long history of hip hop and roller rinks and roller skating, and so there. And we haven't even touched any of the MC's names below Eddie Chiba on there.
It's so rich. It's so rich.
I don't have enough knowledge to know how they.
Yeah,
all
I
fit
really
in.
don't have knowledge. I've heard of those guys, but I can't speak intelligently about. I mean, of course, and I gotta tell you, and Eddie Chiba, his name, that's a big font. You used to get a Studio 54 pass in the heyday. The DJ's name was a little bit bigger than where it said printed in Canada on the bottom of it. So for his name to be that big, that was a big thing.
Yeah, I love. That's why I love this. It's
Beautiful.
it's chock full of heavy hitters, and I love the bounce rock skate roll. I love everything
Send it
about
to
this.
me. I'll put it in my room. I love it.
All right, and so for the next one, I think you'll actually like this one as well. This is actually a complimentary pass for two on a flyer for Danceteria, and it's for the Beastie Boys, celebrating the Beastie Boys for their post-Madonna Virgin Tour party.
Yes.
And as you know, Madonna was the second concert I ever went to, like a virgin, and the Beastie Boys opened for them. This was in San Francisco, and they got booed off the stage.
I was at the Garden. They got booed there as well.
Because the Madonna fans were just not about the Beastie Boys. It
Got
was just
10-year-old girls in there, dressed up with the bracelets and everything, and these guys are throwing water at strippers in cages. Right?
It was just it was a strange fit, but it turns out the Beastie Boys was the opening group was the one that I was more passionate about as time went on, and
Yes.
Obviously Danceteria. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the history there. I believe Jelly Bean was a DJ there for a while.
Mark Paymans.
Yeah,
Mark, he was the guy who actually did her first record, Everybody, and my friend Freddie Bastone was one of the resident DJs as well. He actually ran into Madonna a couple of years ago, and actually no, it was a couple of months ago. They were somewhere, and she got mad at him because he reminded her who he was. I think she wanted to come into the booth on a night that Mark wasn't there, and she wouldn't let her in, and she remembered. Like literally, I had breakfast. I had breakfast with him about 3 months ago, and we were talking about Madonna, about the whole dance theory thing. And he actually goes, because he also acts now. He does a lot. He was in Sopranos and a bunch of different things. And he told me, he goes, I ran into her. We were at a play. He goes, and she actually like got mad at him. She remembered.
Wow, that's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Also on this, I love that it's Rush Artist Management and Def Jam. This is 1985. This is, I believe after, a performance at the Garden. And, it's also, if you look, Jazzy J is on the bill. It's just,
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I got a couple of pieces. I didn't. My eyes are crazy. If I would have realized Jazzy J, I would have pulled out. The first record on Def Jam is Jazzy J. I have a test pressing in that, but I'm going to show you a couple of bits. If you open to.
Yeah, please, please.
I don't want to take over the territory.
No, I was hoping.
I'm going to start with the Rock Hard, which is the Beastie Boys' first record.
Wow.
And that's interesting.
That is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful and it's in great condition. And Yeah, man, the Def Jam, and that was 002. The Jazzy J was number one. And that's also cool when you look at the continuity. They had Jazzy J. They could have had Jam Master J. They could have had, I mean, Hurricane. No, Hurricane was with, oh, Hurricane, was he DJing with them?
Yeah, he was. And
I
and
mean, and the fact that they didn't have their own guy, because Jazzy J wasn't, that was Def Jam controlling the event, which is great.
but that on Rock Hard, that's Rick Rubin, isn't it?
Rick Rubin, but it's 002, which is crazy because the Jazzy J is 001. I have that test pressing as well. But yeah, this is
Interesting.
Rick Rubin. Yeah, this is Rick Rubin. And then I'm gonna this is a wild piece. This is and in America, I've never seen a test pressing or an acetate. I mean, aside from that, like when Def Jam became when the Beasties got bigger after License to Ill, never saw a test or an acetate in America. But this is an Argentina test pressing album, which is, I mean,
Super cool.
that's, I mean, I mean, this is artwork right here. These could be posters. This is kind of a cool one. These are UK. So this is a UK test, and it's nice and aged for Terry. So he kept that nice, the beige tape that's coming apart, so you can see the year in it.
Love
Um,
that.
so this is I Can't Live Without My Radio on Rock the Bells LL, which she's on and Hold It Now, which is really nice that they would do the double A side. In the UK, they were having a lot more fun with the American records. This is a No Sleep to Brooklyn with Fight for Your Right UK
Wow.
test, which is pretty nice. I mean, those Def Jam jackets were just pretty ridiculous. Um, this is another one for Terry because we got the note here that talks about enclosed is the dance single. Oh, yeah, so this is the promotion company that's promoting a bunch of stuff and the Beastie Boys and Full House Communicate. Yeah, so these were all Columbia CBS artists in the UK. And this is She's Crafty with Girls,
Wow.
which is hot. And I mean, the sheet is cool because you could see how CBS, all those other records were kind of stiffs. The Beastie Boys was hot. Full House really didn't do much. James Robinson, I never even heard of that. So that obviously couple more. This is a piece. Fight for Your Right with Paul Revere acetate. And there was in the thing, the guy had these stickers, which are crazy.
Oh, those are cool.
The stickers are crazy, yeah. So I mean those gotta be worth some money. And that also has the sticker on it, which is beautiful. And the last is a Fight for Your Right, No Sleep to Brooklyn. Another one with that inner sleeve. Some of them didn't have that. And yeah, just beautiful piece. I did have one other one that I acquired from this guy, and when I pulled it out, there was like a syrup on the whole thing.
Oof.
And it was a no sleep till yeah, it was a no sleep till Brooklyn. And it was by itself, it was one-sided, and I really wanted to keep it, but I didn't know how to house it because I couldn't put it in anything because whatever you put was gonna stick.
Yeah.
I guess I could have put something that was recessed, but I mean that would a little bit that would have been a lot more work. And I don't understand. And the guy, I don't think the guy was trying to get over on me because I called him. He's like, no, no problem, send it back. And I was like, I really would love to keep it, but I don't want to touch it because you don't really want to wipe an acetate. And I couldn't tell what this was. It was
Is there
very
are there any professionals in the record business that you know of that restore or do conservation on records?
I I've seen people. There's this new digital thing that came. Well, it's not new. I've seen it about 15 years ago. I don't trust anything with records. It's too it's too easy to mess it up. There was a laser that they showed, and with the laser, it was taking a record that had a bunch of scratches in it, and the laser was like supposedly getting rid of the scratches. And I don't really trust it. That was the only thing I've seen. There are people that they have a glue system where they put this glue on it. It's like a wood glue, and it completely covers the record. And then once it gets hard, they pull it up. And they
Ah,
say that works. I don't like touching them. Test pressings, I'll get alcohol and I'll try to wipe them up if I have to. Acetates, I'll just use a cloth. I will never use any substance on it because that can react. You don't know how that's going to react.
You know, I was just wondering in that situation with the syrup, if there was any way for it to stay in your collection. Obviously you don't want it to ruin any of the things around it, and the way that you're so meticulous about storing your items.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I like I said, it would have had to been hanging on a wall, and at that point, is the syrup going to keep dripping? Like I've never seen it in all my years of collecting. I've seen acetates chip. I've seen different. I've never seen that. So
One other thing about this Beasties flyer before we move on that I want to point out, and this goes back to our discussion on condition. If you look at that Beasties flyer for Danceteria, it's got 3 rips in it. And the rips are from when the doorman ripped it as an entrance comp, which is to me, and some collectors may want the mint one, but I kind of feel like it's cooler to have the one that was actually used as a comp to get into Danceteria. But maybe it would be rarer if you had one that wasn't ripped. I don't know. I personally, though, come out on it as it's not a deterioration or any kind of defect with a product if it was used in the way that it was intended, to either advertise it or to gain admission. I think that's kind of cooler than having a very
I mean, I'm a little nutty. I'd probably want to have one of each. I'd probably go there, get one and have the used one. Listen, I get obsessed with, when I start collecting and get into something, I go at a crazy pace.
Sure, but this was a case for me of beggars can't be choosers. I mean,
Absolutely.
I've only seen one other of these, and I'm sure there are more out there. It's New York, and people are collectors there, and this was a very popular club, and I'm sure there are people who have their Danceteria collections at home. So I'm sure there are a number of these out there, but I've only seen one other one in the wild for sale.
I got to tell you, the funny thing about the passes, I look up on eBay once in a while for Studio 54 passes, and I see some sell for 400 or 500. And I'm not even talking about the 1977 studio. I'm talking about 81 through 86 when I was going, and I was going 82 to 86, and I was handing out flyers there for 4 years. So I was getting over 1,000 in a box per week for 4 years. And me, who collects everything, didn't keep one pass.
Oh my God.
I'm like, how is it? There were just things that happened in my life. And I'm like, how could you be doing all of this? And then this is right. Even to just keep 10 on the side, threw them all out. Drives me crazy. Everyone from like, I don't know, March 82 to June 86. It's getting 1,000 a week.
That's insane. In the flea market that we've talked about before on 25th Street in Manhattan, there was a dealer who had a nice stash of Studio 54 comp cards, and they were, they would sell like hotcakes. People were willing to pay, for them because they're so iconic.
I have a Studio 54 chip, like a poker chip, that was a comp for a drink. I have Studio 54 matches. I might have 2 passes. One of them, which was weird, it was like Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. They were doing like beach party. Like for some reason, I have that stupid one, but I don't have any of the the white lines or those iconic UTFO. I saw UTFO there one night, which was crazy because I told you that on the balcony, which is where the performances used to be. So in Studio 54, the balcony would come out from the back wall, and there were two balconies on the sides. So this moving stage would come out. It would unlock. You could get on this, and you could dance over the dance floor while people are dancing underneath you.
Wow.
And the artists would perform on this. They would just, obviously they wouldn't move it. They would just have it stationary. And UTFO one night was there. And what they did, which studio didn't do this a lot, they made a fake train facade on the stage, and it was the door open. It was, yo, EMD, say what's up, man. And they were going back and forth. And then Mixed Master Ice was in the DJ booth which you never saw. Leroy was the only guy in that booth. I remember that night. So anyway, I remember that pass too, which I'm getting kind of pissed off that I don't have it, but I remember that pass.
No, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I think I've seen on eBay a pass for, or an invitation to Studio 54 for the White Lines performance. And I think you told me a story about that.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite nights there. It was also similar situation. Grandmaster Melly Mel, Furious Five, they come out on stage. I don't think Flash was there. I don't remember Flash being there, but the rest of them were there. And they came out and the whole intro, fun, baby, and everybody just watching them flipping out. And it says, that hi-hat came in, they dropped this white stuff that was in my hair for, I think, I say a week, 2 weeks, man. Well, you couldn't get the stuff out of it. It was everywhere in the club. I don't know how they cleaned it up because the next week there was no trace of it. But I don't know what it was. It was everywhere. And I always, because I'm a psycho, I kept thinking like, I know they didn't cover the DJ booth. So did it go all over the records? Like I thought of that instantly when this dropped. That was like where my brain went.
Wow, what a great story. I love that story. Anything else on the Beastie Boys?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much. I mean, I do have an autographed album, but I don't have what's his name who died. I just have the other two guys, and I think Mixmaster Mike, who's spinning with them ladder. I don't have I always make the MCA, right? He passed away.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have his autograph, but yeah, I mean those guys, I mean they were unbelievably iconic. I think it's crazy when you look at the history of them, how they left Def Jam and they basically never got a penny for that album because their deal was if Russell was going to hold them to anything, they had to stay, and they were like, "We're not staying." So and I think it was kind of like he said, "I'll just keep this album and make all this money off of it," which. I mean, at the end of the day, I think he got the better deal. I mean, they are iconic, but that album is that's gonna be in the history books forever.
Yeah, I've had a few crazy pieces of the Beastie Boys over the years. They're one of my favorite groups, and one piece that I still have is it's a set list from, I believe, their third paid performance ever. And the group was 16, 17 years old.
That's great.
They're playing in Max's Kansas City, the famed, venue in New York City. And they were opening, at 16 and 17 years old, they were opening for Bad Brains in Max's Kansas City.
Wow.
And this is a handwritten set list by Kate Schellenbach, who was the drummer at the time in the group. She went on to Lucius Jackson. And but I found this set list, and I found a guy who was selling it, and I was super interested, but you don't know whether or not it's real or not. And so I actually reached out to Kate Schellenbach through social media, and she was gracious enough to verify that it was hers.
That's great.
And she actually told me a little story that that night at Max's, the group, it was closing night of Max's, and they had left the stuff, their equipment, in Max's overnight, and they came back the next day and it was all stolen. Which I thought was a great story.
Yes.
But it's one of the earliest Beastie Boys relics that I've ever seen. I mean, from their third page show.
Oh wait, I'm talking now. I realize you had the ultimate piece.
Yeah,
you have the ultimate piece.
Well, we won't talk about that now, but
all right,
Beastie Boys. Suffice to say, the Beastie Boy. I mean, and they're so collectible, and I think it goes back to something we said a long time ago. Is when bidders come to auction. Unfortunately, there is this thing where if you're going to own a piece of hip hop and have it on your wall, there is the Beastie Boys get very strong prices for whatever reason.
Yes.
Their crossover appeal, very, they appeal to a lot of people, from punk to, mainstream pop to hip hop. And,
yes.
But anyways, well, look, thanks a lot for sharing and letting me share some of my posters.
Great show. Thank you for we got to do more poster knowledge one of these days. That was great, man.
Yeah, the show and tell stuff is always great, and I feel like it's a chance for us to kind of show off a little bit, which is fun, and learn from each other.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for watching.